It's August 2nd, 2022, and you're listening to the Beer Temple Podcast.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again.
Hello, and welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Quinn, and I am joined by your other co-host, Mike Shalau. You know what? I will at some point get the intro down. I don't think I've had a smooth intro yet. Not with the reboot.
I think you kind of nail it every time.
Okay.
What would you like to work on?
The second sentence.
The second sentence.
The second sentence. I got the welcome to the Beer Temple Podcast, and then the next sentence. I usually
that
have
first
a lot
one's a
of
tough
problems.
one, so you're nailing that one.
Yeah. But yeah, so I think I could use a little bit of work.
Is it your co-host, or are you like,
Right.
Is it my co-host?
Well, see, I didn't want to say that you were my co-host, because if I'm their host, that would mean their co-host. That means you're also their co-host.
That's true.
That's why.
That's true.
But I was all going through my mind, bang, 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 the words on the tip of my tongue. What do I say? Oh, my
Yeah.
God.
Yeah.
And then, yeah. So.
I think you nailed it. I enjoyed it.
Okay, cool. Yes. Yeah. How are you? How was your trip?
I'm great, Chris. My trip was fantastic. We, Was Brewing was invited to the Pittsburgh Mixed Culture, I think it was. It was a festival that was like all focused on saisons and mixed culture. And so we drove out there, made a stop at the mecca for this show's hoppy beer, which is Fatheads.
Which I'm drinking right now. Thank you very much. It's tasting as good as I remember it.
Yeah, I believe you had it next to lunch earlier, and you said, never buy lunch again, Stephen.
Even though it's on, yeah. No, I did say we have very fresh lunch on. It is, I've been saying it's the best lunch I've ever had. And you went ahead and ruined it by giving me a, 2-week-old headhunter.
I do love that the headspace you live in where I ruined something for you by bringing you your favorite beer.
I know. It's true. It all comes down to I have to find ways, even if they're tortured, to blame you for things.
Yeah, well, usually it is my fault.
Yeah.
But I made up for it by bringing you about a 4-foot-tall standee of the Fathead character wearing a Hawaiian shirt and with a pretzel necklace.
What does that guy have a name, you think, or is he just Fathead?
I think he's got to be just Fathead.
Yeah.
So this thing's like what? It's probably 4 feet tall,
At least.
and his head is probably 2 feet of it.
Yeah, it's 2 feet.
We like to believe that it's based on a real person. It's full sized, and that's just his proportions.
To scale. Yeah. Full size to scale.
Yep.
Yeah, and he's wearing a Bermuda shirt, a pretzel necklace.
He's got
He's got shades.
He's got shades, like a big floppy hat.
And big red shoes. Not quite clown shoes, but very big and round
That's a different
shoes.
brewery.
Yeah.
He seems to be
And shorts, but long shorts.
He's attending some sort of outdoor festival, I would imagine.
Yes. Yeah, and he has a beer in his hand. A mug of beer, I believe.
Yeah, like a dimple mug. I thought it was for their Oktoberfest because of the pretzels in the mug, and then I'm like, I think this is just like what this guy's life is like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. My life a beer event.
Yeah. Fathead.
Fathead. I mean, that's what else do you want from that guy?
Nothing. He's delivered.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was great. Festival was great. Honestly, one of the best run festivals. I can only speak from the brewer's side that I've ever attended. Especially like breweries coming in from all over the country, some shipping beer. We drove our beer in and dropped it off. Like there's a lot of moving parts for them to handle, and it was about as smooth as I've ever seen something like that handled. Especially like with a lot of breweries pouring from jockey boxes, like, I don't know if you've ever had this experience with our kegs, but sometimes there's like a little bit of foam in there. But they had enough ice, everything was cold, everything poured perfectly, which I'll take credit for that now because I didn't overcome.
They probably had good jockey boxes too. Did they have we're now getting into the realm of not one person listening cares, but that's fine. Did they have cold plates or did they have coils?
We brought our own jockey box. We borrowed one from Beguile, and it had a cold plate.
Ooh. Mm-hmm. No, that surprises me. I would have thought the coils would have been better for your some
I would have
foamy tendency.
We all would have thought that, but it was the hand we were dealt, and we nailed it.
Great.
Yeah, we brought pitchers just in case we weren't going to be able to pour straight from the taps, but we didn't have to use them.
Hey, amazing.
Yeah, I'm as shocked as anyone.
Hey, I mean, take the win.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. We also brewed a collaboration with some new friends of ours at Coven Brewery, which is out there in Pittsburgh. Some former Dancing Gnome employees that opened their own space.
Very cool.
We brewed a Tepache-inspired Saison with some Piloncillo sugar and some pineapple to be released at some point in Pittsburgh. So if you're in Pittsburgh, check it out.
Okay.
Or I don't know, if it's on the radio, don't do that. Just it will be there.
Yeah. So it's just you and me. Well, and Serge.
And
Serge.
And this is the day Serge finally talks, right, Serge?
Yep, Serge is. He forgot to bring his mic.
Oh, you ran out of mics.
Lame.
Oh, that's too bad.
Lame. Don't worry. We'll have a Serge centric episode coming up. It's on the schedule.
A fade that changed my life with Serge.
Yeah. Well, one thing we were talking about that, like, what would we talk about? Because I think there is a lot of stuff about Serge that people legitimately don't realize, like, what he's doing and what he's like the whole time when he's not doing what do they do when he isn't fading? And I was like, well,
he's
where you're wrong.
Fading.
Well, no, he is. Well, that's when he's not literally doing the show. That's what he does. He practices fading, but he starts the fade out. As soon as the show starts, he's doing the fade. It's just fading, so slow that you don't even realize it.
Right. He's all about the user experience.
Right.
And he wants you to have a good time.
Right. So he's just cross-fading both of them the entire time. And it gives you subliminally, probably subconsciously, a feeling of like, it's getting louder, it's getting more powerful. We're at full steam now, and now it's slowly ending. Yeah, he just does it through his fades.
Yeah, it's like a score in a movie, except it's like when it gets to like the dramatic part of the show, it's peak fade.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So that'll be fun, and we'll have to do a video episode, and then they can see his haircut, which is obviously a fade.
It is. It's a tight fade.
Tight fade.
Yeah.
He gets it, I think, touched up daily.
Yeah, absolutely. Has to.
Yeah, perpetually touching up his fade.
He wants his outsides to reflect his abilities.
Exactly. But yeah, so it's just going to be the three of us, and what we should get right out of the way is an episode that's coming up in the future that we need people's
input.
Contributions for, right?
Yeah.
We're going to do another book club, which got a ton of emails and electric letters and letters.
Nice.
Yeah, when we did the last time. So we're going to do another one. And I think you picked this book. I think you picked the last book, too.
Oh, I'm a reader. We're going to do barrel-aged stouts and selling out, which, Josh, if you're listening, now you know.
Get ready. He knows.
Yeah.
We might have pushed it off several times already.
Yeah. So if you have read the book, if you have send us some questions. If you have been meaning to read the book and send us some questions.
Yeah, it's a worthwhile book, for sure.
If you haven't purchased the book, are they available at Beer Temple?
No.
I was trying to think of a way of this show.
I was trying to think of a way to say yes, but yes, we can. Yeah, we'll get some.
Yeah,
we'll get some. I'll reach out to Josh and we'll get some books. You guys can come in and get them.
Mm-hmm. And if you have any questions, any thoughts, concerns, edits that he probably would love, send those in. But seriously, we want it to be like kind of like this is actually a book club where we can all talk about the book when we sit down with him. So help us be part of it.
Yeah, and you can send that stuff to insiders at craftbeertemple.com, or you can shoot us a letter at the Beer Temple. You can send it to the Beer Temple podcast. You can send it to Mike. You can send it to me. You can send it to Serge. All three of us have gotten letters in the past. And it's 3173 North Elston Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, 60618. We have to remember to do this every episode, and also remind people to send their letters in, because you know what? I'm not going to lie. We've gotten some letters, electronic. We haven't gotten a non-electronic letter in I don't know when. It's upsetting to me.
It's sad.
And I
last
hold
time you
you
put the
guys
address in the show notes.
Every time I do it.
Oh wow!
Every time.
Nice. You can tell I'm paying attention.
Yeah, exactly. No, I definitely do that every week now. Yes, it's also in the show notes. And let us know what you about the book, or just about anything at all.
Literally anything.
Literally anything. And you know what? We're drinking a whole bunch of IPAs. We usually don't do that when we don't have any guests about talking about beers that we liked. But there's a beer from Roaring Table, an IPA. Talk about a throwback. This thing is called the All-American Hamburger IPA, I think it. All-American Burger?
Is it a Pat Burger collab?
Oh, probably is. From Roaring Table. And for those of you who like the old school OG, onion garlic, I just learned that phrase today.
Just letters.
It is for you. It's nice. It's very clean, very hoppy, different hop profile than a lot of IPAs that I'm having are. I as crazy as it sounds, I think I might be done with the super duper fruity hops. I don't know. They just don't tend to be my favorite. I like more piney.
You do realize, like, many
herbal.
times on this show, people have thought that you don't even allow your bar to serve those. So
True.
It's shocking that you would say that.
Yes.
Everyone
No, that's
listening
hazy.
is-
That's hazy, but I don't know.
Yeah, but then you're drinking it next. Do you like the Headhunter more than you like the? Because that's a beer that I went there, had it, fantastic, having it now, fantastic, and that has fruity hops in it.
Yes, but it also has it has a lot of I think kind of piney,
Pithy, piney things going on.
Grapefruit pithy, yeah, for sure.
So when are we doing the the Chris Quinn IPA blind taste-a-thon challenge?
Whenever we can do that.
Like an old school classic Beer Temple app.
Here's the thing. I'll do the Pepsi challenge. I'll throw down right now. If it's a fresh Headhunter, blind, I don't care how many IPAs. Well, give me, that's not true. I do care how many IPAs. Because if it's going to be 100,
by yourself on camera, no one's going to watch that.
But I bet you if it's I don't know. What's a lot, but not an absurd amount?
You
10?
we'll do less than 10. We'll do 5 or 6. But we got to
Very
actually
confident.
blindfold you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Full blind.
that's fine.
Not even tell you where on the table the glasses are.
Right. Exactly.
It's just you groping around the table.
Exactly. And just randomly put them there. I don't know if I've tasted all of them.
Uh-huh.
I don't know, because I might have tasted 2 of them 3 times.
Right. It might only be one beer on the table that we keep moving around on you. Who knows?
No, I think, and I have a very bad taste memory,
That seems impossible.
but this one I think I could call out.
How do you say you have a bad taste memory?
I think I can.
It's not as good as you like, but I would
I can-
imagine that you're pretty far down the bell curve of taste memory.
Maybe, but I think I'm much better at
Or up the bell curve?
talking about the flavors that I'm experiencing. Then I'm like, I
sure.
remember this beer. This is that beer. Some people are very good at that.
I don't have
I'm
that
not.
hardly at all, to be honest.
Yeah.
When we did that Pilsner tasting here, there was only one beer where I was like, I think I know what that one was. And it was at the brewery that I had worked at. So
That
I was glad that I did
difficult.
know what that one was, though. Mm-hmm. But people have given me my own beers sometimes. They're like, this is really good. What is this? Like,
Yours, dude.
Yeah, thank
that would have been me.
yeah.
That would be me, very much so.
Yeah.
So that's a beer that the All American burger or hamburger, something like that. It's good. I like it quite a bit.
Nice.
There's a bunch of stuff we can talk about. A lot's been going on. One of them is crazy. Okay, so where do we want to start? Do we want to talk about IPAs? Do we want to talk about CO2? Like, there's so many fun things to talk about.
I think we got to do IPAs, right?
IPAs. Okay, because we're going to do this Chapo style, right?
Yeah, we it's a read along.
Mm-hmm. It's a read along. So there was an article in Paste that came out a few days ago from Jim Vorel, which I'm almost certain we've read his articles in the past and been impressed by.
There was a minute where Paste was like the place to go for interesting beer coverage.
I mean, this is so this is an article that to me calls something out that to me in the industry is obvious,
right,
and something I've been saying all the time, but just writes it and uses really good data points. Data points. I mean, I'm making it sound like an old Brian Roth article, but it's just well written for a beer article and stuff like that. So I figured we could just read the article and kind of stop and talk about it. It's not that long of an article. And the article is iconic craft breweries are completely surrendering to IPA dominance. And when I told you about this article, what was the first thing that you said? Do you remember?
I don't remember.
What year was this written? Because it sounds like it's
like
from
2014.
Yeah, or at least 2018.
Yeah, sure.
At the latest.
Right.
No, but this was just written, and
right.
It's more true now even than then.
Yeah, because there are certainly a lot of breweries making a lot of IPAs, but what they lay out in the article is more about like the biggest breweries just essentially. We'll read the article.
Yeah. So it starts out, in our current era, I'm beginning to think that craft beer geeks must fall into one of three camps. They would be, 1, the rank and file drinkers who genuinely cannot get enough India Pale Ale and have no problem with other beer styles being displaced in the market by more and more IPA. I personally don't know many of these people, but if they didn't exist, we wouldn't be seeing what we're seeing right now. Number 2, IPA doomers.
Before he describes it, I feel like you're kind of...
Obviously, an IPA doomer. Those frustrated souls who have come to resent you know what? After this is done, we should all say who we are. Okay. Yeah. IPA doomers, those frustrated souls who have come to resent the country's most popular and prolific craft beer style. These folks, of which I have occasionally been one, and he's got a link to another article, can often be found at the pulpit preaching about the impending doom of beer variety as it threatens to be crushed under an inexorable tide of hops.
Oh, so not you.
Definitely not me.
No
I
way.
Definitely don't do that.
No way.
Pulpit preaching.
The beer evangelist?
Beer evangelist.
No way.
And 3, IPA agnostics who acknowledge that the style has grown to rather ridiculous proportions, but also find themselves just as annoyed with the latest iteration of the sky is falling from beer fans who believe they spend entirely too much time complaining about IPA. I think that's
probably me.
I mean, that's pretty fair. I mean, if you were going to put 3 people, all beer drinkers, into those craft beer drinkers, I should say, into 3 categories, I would have never guessed that those 3 would capture most people. It probably does.
Yeah.
So, good on Jim Vorel for doing that. Obviously, I mean, it's like cartoonishly accurate that I am too.
Yeah.
Which is funny because hoppy pale ales are my favorite style of beer,
right.
Which is funny.
I love them as well.
I love them. I absolutely love them. But yes.
I'm probably 3.
You're an IPA agnostic,
Yes, like I drink the ones that I like.
and you don't
And then
care
I don't
that
really
they're
pay
just
attention to the rest of it. Like I basically started a whole business to not have to pay attention to the rest.
true. And you were the one who's always said like, but there's more of every other style than there always has been.
Yeah,
You,
but
I mean,
you
this.
don't
I
hear,
think
you
you're
don't really hear me saying that anymore, though.
no, but I'm
I
saying
believe
like
that at that time. I don't know. If I
right,
do anymore.
but that has been kind of your stance. If not, you don't believe that maybe that literally that what you used to believe. That is generally the camp you come from.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about you, Serge? What you can
Hold up fingers.
or just say it out loud.
Serge
You
is-
can grab a mic, talk.
Say it as loud as you can.
He's 3. Serge is 3.
It says 3.
3. I mean, it's funny because Serge also, I mean, 2 of his favorite beers are Lunch and Headhunter,
Yeah.
which he's
Which he's
drinking
already,
both
already
of,
had
which
both
he's
of before we started the show.
both-
It finished it.
Yeah,
Surge might they might be a little wobbly in the face
yeah,
today.
it's okay. Yeah, they're gonna think this. He's got some like sick new effect he's been working on, you know. Yeah, so
It is shocking that it can probably encompasses most of the people.
rank
that I
and
know.
file IPA doomers and IPA agnostics. And he goes on, he says, as annoyed as I often am by the omnipresent nature of IPA dominating the tap list of hyped craft breweries, the fact that so many craft beer drinkers are also willing to make excuses for objectively bad beer. Wait, let me start over. I missed a word. As annoyed as I am by the omnipresent nature of IPA dominating the tap list of hyped craft breweries and the fact that so many beer drinkers are also willing to make excuses for objectively bad beer, it's hard to fault the point that those IPA agnostics are often trying to make. As they would put it, yes, there's a ton of IPAs out there, but it's not that hard to find alternatives either, which is like exactly what you have said in the past. It's funny.
I still agree with that.
Right. I mean, he knows us. He's looked into our souls.
He's looked at our Series and our
Yeah.
iPhones and knows what we've been talking about.
Let people enjoy what they enjoy, you might expect to hear. And really, there's no way you can argue against that sentiment. If you love IPA, and I still do love hoppy beer as well, in my own way, then it should go without saying that you're free to proclaim that love and enjoy an era of universal access to hazy, juicy hoppiness. If IPA is all you care for in the beer world, then perhaps there's never been a better time for craft beer than right now. Yes. Okay. So you agree with that?
Yeah.
Yeah. For those of us burdened with a little bit broader historical perspective, though, the continuing encroachment of IPA isn't just problematic from a standpoint of all I can find at this bar is IPA. Rather, that encroachment represents an existential, transformative threat to the heart and soul of some of the iconic companies that have for decades represented craft beer as a whole. That's a huge statement right there.
Yeah, very eloquent, but
Yes.
very true.
And when a company with that kind of stature is radically transformed by kowtowing to the dominance of IPA, then it's impossible to act as if the industry itself isn't being equally transformed.
Totally. This is something we've kind of. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Was there more
Go.
for that?
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
something we've talked about, right? Where
Yeah.
that's kind of the whole thing that's happening.
Let me finish the paragraph. He goes, because if not even the icons of the industry are immune to the pressure to transform their entire beer lineup into shades of similar IPA, who can be expected to resist?
Right. Well, it's also like,
Yeah.
so maybe what we're seeing now is that this is an industry where the small breweries are way out in front of what people actually want to drink. And that when you see the proliferation of, oh, this brewery is just making Citrus, Simcoe, and Mosaic this, and it's like they just moved faster to actually sate what this platonic ideal of a
Right.
craft beer drinker that we're trying to sell beer to wants.
And
And that the big breweries are just kind of now figuring out, like, oh, we got to get those people.
and he's putting it,
Not figuring out.
you know, he's saying what I've been saying. Well, he's not saying, he's putting it into a broader argument that is much deeper and more well-formed than me just bitching. And I mean, that it's amazing. Rather, that encroachment represents an existential, transformative threat to the heart and soul of some of the iconic companies that have for decades represented craft beer as a whole.
And it's certainly a result of a a rapidly matured market, right?
Right. I think so. I mean, certain beer drinkers drink light beer, and certain beer drinkers drink IPA.
Mm-hmm. This is
and what type of brewery are you? Are you a light beer brewery, or are you an IPA brewery?
right. This is the Ray Daniels hell.
Yes.
He
Yes.
said it multiple times, probably on this show, that
Yes.
is the worst thing that could happen to craft beer is for you to walk into a bar and say, "I'll have an IPA."
I'll have
at the
the
time,
IPA.
And at the time he was saying, we're all like, "What? That sounds like a great world." And then it's
Right.
like, "Oh, the realities of that world are like, I don't know, dystopian."
Yeah. So he
Guess
goes
dystopia
on
was
to
strong,
write,
but-
sadly, there's no clearer illustration of this in the craft beer world right now than what has been going on with the beloved Sierra Nevada Brewing Company in the last few years. Although Sierra Nevada, like most American breweries, has always been associated with hops in the form of their iconic pale ale and others, the most recent phase of its evolution has come to structure itself entirely around hops and IPA. In the process, a company once known for its balanced lineup of classic beer styles and trend-setting experimentation has become almost completely homogenized. To those who have loved the beers of Sierra Nevada for decades, it feels tragic to see a single beer style displace so many other excellent selections. I could not agree more about Sierra Nevada. Couldn't agree more. Every time a new beer comes out, I say, I'm kind of agnostic to it in a one-on-one thing. Like, I'm not upset that that beer exists. That's fine. But at what cost?
Sure.
And I would almost always prefer that the beer that goes away doesn't go away and that the new beer just doesn't exist, because there's many of those beers already, you know? And yeah, it's, and that's kind of what I guess, lament.
Is this is like so how's something like that go from being them leading the consumer and being like, no, you should try the pale ale and like check out this Keller Weiss and all that stuff to the consumer then dictating this is or the analytics of what the consumer is buying dictating this is what sells, and this is it the fact that we have better data collection systems now? Is that all that it is, or is there some sort of other maybe more like
my guess is there's got to be some
force?
market pressure. There's got to be that people want this stuff in their set, and that they want new. They want seasonal, and they want not new. So it's like this thing with Half Acre. You know, this winter IPA. This thing with Half Acre. I we talked about it probably a year ago, and I'm acting like we just talked about it.
Cold IPA,
and it's not just exactly. And it's not just Half Acre, but how Doug was all in on this. Doug Valicki was all in on this winter IPA thing, and we were kind of ribbing him a little bit about it. I mean, half the time we know he's right, but we just like to rib him anyway.
What do you mean half the time?
Yeah, right, all the time. So yeah, how they're just doing seasonal IPAs. They're doing the same thing essentially. So let's keep reading. He goes, but let's get into the details. Just how much has IPA gained dominance over a brand like Sierra Nevada? Well, the brewery has 4 core brands, which consist of pale ale and 3 IPAs. Then there's the Little Thing series, consisting of 2 flagship hazy IPAs, a kettle sour, and a citrus wheat beer flavored in such a way as to mimic the same juicy flavor profile of hazy IPA. Then there's a seasonal beer lineup, which now consists of 4 IPAs and nothing else. Wow. I didn't realize that.
They don't make like Bigfoot anymore?
It's an IPA, man. That's an American barley wine.
yeah.
I mean, that beer is credited with inspiring the first double IPA.
Sure.
I
forgot they call that an IPA.
It's not. No, it's a barley wine, but it's a.
But so he's saying that there's 4 seasonals that are all IPAs.
Well, let's. There might be other.
Got it.
I don't know. Maybe that's not considered a seasonal.
He wasn't saying all of the seasonals. Or he did say all the seasonals.
Then there's the seasonal beer lineup, which now consists of 4 IPAs and nothing else. Yeah. Okay. I should have read the next sentence. Only the high altitude section of strong ales avoids being mostly IPA, although it does contain Optimum Triple IPA, and that's a lot of freaking IPA. I would also say Bigfoot is, that is as close to an IPA without being an IPA as it can be. It is a hoppy, incredibly hoppy, aggressive, hop-driven barley wine.
Yeah.
And then he's got a picture of the Perpetual IPA seasonals. So it starts out, it's broken up by quarters. Q1 is Powder Day IPA, which is, I guess, a winter IPA. Then there's Summer Break IPA. Then there's Liquid Hoppiness IPA. And then finally, Q4, the beloved Celebration Fresh Hop IPA. So that's their seasonal
IPAs.
That's messed up, man. The reason, I think he's going to get into this. Now think back to recent years and the kind of beers you may have sampled from Sierra Nevada in that time. Perhaps you loved Nooner Pilsner. Great beer. Nooner was awesome. Or the seasonal Summerfest lager.
Awesome.
Mike Siegel, friend of the show, one of his absolute favorite beers in the world, would text me multiple times asking when Summerfest lager was coming in and would buy like as much as he could. Just loved it. Can't get it anymore. I think they might make it, but you have to like go to Chico to get it, you know. Maybe you're a devotee of the annual Oktoberfest lager. Dead, by the way, as of this year. Even after COVID-19 pandemic.
June.
Yeah. Prevented it from being a yearly collaboration with the German brewery. Maybe your jam was Otra Vez, Goza, or Ruthless Rye. Oh, remember Ruthless Rye? Beautiful artwork on that beer, by the way. That was a good beer.
I am having
Ruthless
nostalgic
Rye.
moments that I wasn't expecting to have.
Remember Ruthless Rye? That was like a hoppy beer, too. It was like that rye, kind of rye IPA, kind of. But it was like a fall beer. Had that like... Yeah, really cool artwork.
Wasn't Ruthless Rye a dark beer? Am I thinking of something else?
Ruthless Rye didn't have like a windswept autumn picture with a woman in like a cloak or something. Is that what it was?
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Thanks, Jamie.
Yeah,
it's like a other podcast reference.
Oh, okay.
That was Surge.
Or the fall seasonal brown ale tumbler. I remember people. I liked Tumbler, but there were people who were Tumbler, like devout Tumbler lovers.
Right. So there used to be a thing where like whenever a brewery stopped making a beer, everyone said it was their favorite beer, and then the brewery, well, not the brewery. There was, I think Jeremy Danner specifically was like, it wasn't your favorite beer because you didn't buy enough of it because we had to discontinue it. And that's not the case anymore. Right. Craft beer is just too big for like those things to be like. There can be plenty of people who say that's my favorite beer, and not be enough to keep something like Sierra Nevada, and buy as much as a case of it or something, but not be enough for Sierra Nevada to keep it in their production. Yeah. Also, that was that take has aged terribly. Yeah. It has.
Okay, so maybe your final exposure. Maybe your first exposure. Hold on, let me go back a sentence because I never finished it. Maybe your jam was Otra Vez Goza, Ruthless Rye, or the fall seasonal brown ale tumbler, or Sierra Vesa Mexican lager. I don't remember that one. Maybe your first experience to classic Belgian ales was Sierra's Ovila series of Abbey ales. They had a plum quad, which was amazing. Yeah, absolutely amazing. Okay, loved that. Was very upset. And I met a Sierra Nevada brewer, and asked him about that, and he kind of laughed in my face. I was like, "Do you have any of that? Like just sitting around in barrels?" He's like, "I don't know, man. Maybe we have something." So not a single one of those brands is referenced anywhere on the Sierra Nevada website today. 0 of them in any capacity are implied to still exist. Perhaps the company is still making them occasionally or producing them to fill out the tap list of its brewery tap rooms, but their marketing department isn't acknowledging any of them, not even beers like Summerfest and Oktoberfest, which were seasonal staples for years. Now, every single season is apparently the season of IPA. The former Oktoberfest page of the Sierra Nevada website even points visitors to the Autumn IPA. Yeah. So, yeah, I just heard that this was the article that I found out that Oktoberfest was getting cut, and it was Mike Siegel who sent it to me.
Damn.
Yeah, so no more Oktoberfest, no more Summerfest. Ruthless Rye. I mean, I feel like Ruthless Rye. Here's the crazy thing. I feel like now Ruthless Rye could kill. I think it could do really well because there are no rye IPAs out there anymore. Like the old school Reds Rye Founders type thing.
But, I mean, that's for a reason probably, right?
I don't know.
And I think that what should happen is that a smaller local brewery should take up that space, right? I think we've had this conversation off the show a bunch of times where you're like, there's got to be space for like someone to make a brown ale or like something. But
I think that was my prediction for the end of year show, which I'm sure you were on, in like 2016 or something crazy. I was like, this next year, a small brewery will see that there's an opportunity to make these other styles.
What happens is that though, like those aren't like that memorable or attention grabbing beers. So I think that kind of has happened, right? Like at least in Chicago, there's Central Coast makes a brown ale that's at least talked about. I don't know how readily available. I don't purchase that much, but like that's like, and maybe that they make enough to fill the Chicagoland necessity for brown ale. But I mean, what's the market for the the rye IPA nationally? Is it, and can they justify making that versus making something that?
Well, no. I mean, they probably. Who knows? I mean, I think maybe one of those. I think Ruthless Rye of all of them. Oktoberfest. How could it? I mean, I think Oktoberfest probably.
Oktoberfest is pretty bonkers.
Yeah, but after that, if they're going to take more of a chance, I would say Ruthless Rye, which was a rye. Can you pull up that label again, Serge?
It's also kind of crazy. If it's a rye IPA, it should be fit right into this thing.
But it's like it's
old,
malty,
it's been around. It's your dad's beer.
It's peppery. It's rye IPA. Yeah, it's a rye IPA. So, I mean, I think some diversity even in IPA is what we're definitely going to be seeing. That we're already seeing it, frankly.
There's probably diversity in that offering of IPAs. You think they're making the same IPA and just like making it 14 different times? If the complaint is that there isn't diversity within IPA.
There's Powdered Day double dry hopped.
Nailed it.
Then
That's
there's
one more dry
Summer
hop than
Break
Session
Hazy. Mm-hmm. Okay. Then there's Liquid Hoppiness Juicy.
Mm-hmm. Totally different. Well, to be fair, diverse.
Yes. Okay.
These are all technically called different things.
Christ. I mean, those first three are the business cards in American
We have
Psycho.
an Italian guy, a Swiss guy, and a German guy. It's a very diverse group of people we have here.
No, it's more like a Sicilian, a Roman, and and then the last one is Celebration. I'll give them Celebration. They also know
Legacy.
I mean, come on. Ken Grossman probably would like. It's just like no.
Yeah,
you're not getting rid of that.
It's the $1.50 hot dogs at Costco that Jim Senegal's threatened to kill people over.
Right.
So you're saying that Ken Grossman has threatened to kill people over getting?
I think you said that. Yeah,
you agree. I said it's like that. And you said yes.
All right, so where we left off was that the former Oktoberfest page of Sierra Nevada's website even points visitors to the Autumn IPA. But that's not even the end of it. There are also Sierra Nevada zombie brands, which the company still acknowledges, but
like
effectively doesn't distribute.
Oh, okay.
On the website, classics such as
IPA.
Keller Weiss, Porter, and Stout, the first beer, the Stout, that Sierra ever produced, are listed under the, quote, specialty section with text saying that they're worth the search. In other words, the company is tacitly admitting what any fan of those beers has known for a long time. They're almost impossible to find in distribution because all the national shelf space is reserved for other brands, almost all of them IPAs. Sure, if you're visiting Sierra Nevada Brewery in California or North Carolina, you might be able to find a pint of Keller Weiss or Stout at the company tap room, but for 99.9% of the brewery's customers, these brands effectively do not exist. Even using the company's Get This Beer tool on the website, I couldn't find availability in any of these brands in the last 3 major cities where I lived: Chicago, Atlanta, Richmond. And what tiny percentage of consumers would even take the time to attempt to use such a tool in the first place? That's an amazing line. It's so true.
Yeah.
I will say we would carry probably all 3 of those beers year-round, and we don't. And in fact, when it was like last year, I think it was 2 years ago, that Stout and Porter came through in 6-packs into Chicago, and the rep failed to mention it to us. I think I might have gotten angrier since then, but maybe not. That I was livid. And I was like, and if you're listening, like I effectively said, "Are you an idiot? Are you an idiot to not mention that to this store? How long have you been selling beer here?"
I mean, they must have had it sold already or something, right?
Yeah,
like
I'm sure.
Benny's took up both cases they sent.
Well, I saw it, like somebody else like sent me a picture of another store with it, and I was like, "What?"
You're like, how old is that?
It was like, I think it was Mike Siegel again. He was like, "You guys stout?"
Sierra Nevada
I was like,
fan.
"No, we're not getting any stout porter." He's like, "Well, what's this?" And I was like, so pissed off because I was also being called out and being shown that I was ignorant of what was in the market.
I'm sure that's his intention.
Yeah, no. Yeah, obviously, I was so angry. I was so angry. It's so funny.
I love
I'm
that that's
sure.
what makes you so
I
mad.
know, and I love too that they're like, this asshole. Like, this is, but you know
You
what?
got so mad at us.
But they also knew.
$38
They also
case.
knew that, like, come on, like,
Yeah,
you're not going to tell Beer Temple
right.
that a classic Sierra Nevada
An institution
brand.
that tried to have fresh Sierra Nevada Pale Ale on
all the time.
as their main beer to have.
Yeah. Oh, the Stout and the Porter are seeing the first time it's been dropped in. We're seeing one drop, and you may not see it again in 2 years, FYI, because you haven't seen it in 2 years. It's like,
Did you end up getting any?
Yeah, we ended. Oh, they may have had to pick some up from other stores. Yeah, we got some. Keller Weiss, I believe you can get in Chicago on draft only in the summers because of the hop leaf. I think they get one drop a year, and they buy a whole bunch of Keller Weiss. They used to. So I think Keller Weiss you might be able to get in Chicago, but I think it might be like literally one place. Which makes me think we should get in on that and buy it. I mean, have it on for a couple weeks at least. I don't need to have it on.
You're taking Zwanze Day from the guy, now you're taking his Keller Weiss.
No.
Jeez, man.
No.
He's never coming back to the show.
It was offered to me. I took nothing. And if Keller Weiss is offered to me, I think I would love to have fresh Keller Weiss on for 2 weeks, for a month. That'd be great.
Yeah.
And then for the other, the later months,
If it's offered to me after
when
I
it still
call
is
the
tasting good, I'm sure.
rep for an idiot for not offering it to me.
Right. So Jim Vorel writes, Why is this? Well, when looking for fault, one unsurprisingly can't remove the consumer from the equation. Surely the brewers at Sierra Nevada would love to produce a diverse array of beer styles. What brewery doesn't appreciate eclectic tastes? What brewer doesn't appreciate eclectic tastes? But if consumers remain single-mindedly focused on IPA, then the company's hands become tied. Likewise, with almost 10,000 breweries now operating in the U.S., the availability of shelf space is more limited than ever. With ever facing opportunities to land beer on shelves and distributors demanding only the most popular styles, that's also going to lead to a preponderance of IPA from big regional breweries like Sierra Nevada. 100% agree with him.
Sure.
It's absolutely correct. You know what, man? This being a beer article in Pace Magazine, it's great. He's really...
I haven't read a lot of it recently, but at one time they were a fantastic source of beer.
Yeah, this is a great article.
Or at least beer opinion,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. After all, it's not as if this phenomenon is constrained to one company. I'm not using Sierra Nevada as a sample out of some desire to specifically focus on them. Rather, this is just the state of the landscape for many of the most recognizable American breweries in 2022. New Belgium has largely been swallowed up by the still exploding success of the Voodoo Ranger line of beers. Shiner is refocusing on IPA in 2022. Cigar City's focus on High Life and other IPAs has only become more pronounced. Stone dubbed itself a lager brewery back in 2021 and then proceeded to introduce more IPA brands before eventually selling to Sapporo this year. For more of the same, look at the likes of Lagunitas, whether or not they still qualify under the increasingly irrelevant Brewer Association definition of craft brewer. Like Sierra Nevada, they seem to have quietly retired certain key beers from their lineup, and or at least it certainly looks that way when you're looking at the official beer lineup, a rather sad page that begins with 3 spiked teas rather than any beers. Oh my gosh. And he's got links to a lot of this stuff.
I didn't know that.
Boy, oh boy, that is sad. There wasn't a very eclectic lineup at IPA. At Lagunitas. at
Freudian.
Yeah. One thing you won't see, Lagunitas Classic Pils Czech Style Pilsner. Wow, that's crazy. That used to be like
the craft.
It was like
Pilsner.
1 and 2 for them. It was the Pils and the IPA. Pils and IPA. Wow. Which is nowhere to be found and seemingly no longer has a page of its own on the Lagunitas website. It doesn't even make an appearance on the Gone But Not Forgotten page, which mentions other discontinued Lagunitas classics such as Censored, Dogtown Pale Ale, and Cappuccino Stout. What about like Hairy Eyeball? What about Undercover, like Censored Ale?
Operation.
Yeah, what about there was another one, a Brown Sugar.
Uh-huh.
All those beers were.
Lagunitas sucks.
Yeah, Lagunitas sucks.
Which actually is funny because they forgot to order the brown sugar is the story.
Yeah.
And so they made an IPA.
Right.
Like that's what Lagunitas sucks was. And I was like, it's pretty good.
And they were saying it because people were pissed off that
they didn't make brown sugar.
They didn't make brown sugar that year. Mm-hmm. It's probably safe to say that all were sacrificed to the altar of IPA, given that the company is now selling a variety pack that contains nothing but IPA. Is that not the most oxymoronic concept of variety imaginable? Well, Mike would say no. Mike would say that it is more diverse, if anything.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. It's hard to watch this kind of domination by a single beer style without feeling some sense of tragedy, especially when talking about brands that have so long been cited as bellwethers of the American craft beer industry. A few years ago, the likes of Sierra Nevada or Lagunitas would have been the kind of brewery you'd universally hear as a response if you asked for an example of an American craft brewery that generally represented the diversity and breadth of the segment. Today, these companies still represent typical American craft breweries, but in a sense, that is more problematic. Exactly what you were just saying. They fit with the zeitgeist exactly because their formerly diverse beer lineups have been consumed by IPA the way the blob might envelop a small town. And with every seasonal quote unquote, he has seasonal in quotes. With every seasonal overhaul, we seem to be losing more and more of the distinct eclectic styles that have originally made the craft beer scene such an exciting exploration for so many of us. The homogenization continues unabated. For seasonal beer drinkers, there will surely be access to the greater diversity of styles we're looking for, but that doesn't mean we can't simultaneously mourn for the days when the industry's most respected brands possessed that kind of diversity. And finally, consider the newer craft beer drinker, the person who may only have become interested in the beer scene within the last few years. If things continue this way, how long will it be before those new drinkers are familiar with nothing but IPA and the occasional kettle sour? When every seasonal is an IPA, do seasons even exist? That's the end.
Sums up
perfect.
the tone
of
a lot of what we talk about.
Yeah. And I do agree. And I think what he gets at is, I think he's saying that you are right, Mike. There probably is more of those, of whatever beer style you want to say is out there than there ever has been before. But the overall trend is still IPA.
Totally. And as we started, I said, I don't really say that anymore because while it might be true, the ability to access those things is so much diminished compared to the ability to access everything else, right?
Right.
Even when I was like, oh, but there's still more diversity of style, which is probably still true, and you're seeing more small breweries do more different things, but at least in traditional styles, but to have to keep in your mind
to go to a specialty shop or a brewery to get that.
15 different breweries that make 12 different styles, and it's a big ask.
Yeah, it's an impossible ask for anyone who is below the level of being a hobbyist.
Totally. That's the brewery that I operate is basically people who are very, very into craft beer. Or they're into we also have an overlap with people who are into natural wine and things like that. But that's because it's hand sold at places
still
like that.
Still a hobbyist.
That also are into it. So definitely a hobbyist. And I set out to make something that was a very specific example of a very well-made version of the thing
based on
that
historical inaccuracies.
Historical inaccuracies, but in a way that I wanted to make it. But even well above average consumer that consumes craft beer, has no idea what our brewery is, nor do I expect them to. And I think about myself consuming other things, right? I really like natural wine. I don't actually know anything about it. You know why? Because I have a job and I have a life that doesn't just revolve around that. And that's the way that I think about the people that might be drinking our beer.
Yeah.
And so if the only bastion of diversity of style is the proliferation of a bunch of small breweries that either focus on or even dabble in making those, that's different than it being there's a lot of noise, but there's still a bunch of signal of all these styles. It's like finding needles in haystacks to find good examples of these things too, right? Because even a lot of the bigger, more popular craft breweries that still make styles that aren't IPA don't focus on it. They focus on IPA. So their version of whatever that style is probably not the best. So when someone who really likes that brewery and gets it, drinks it, they're just gonna be I don't really like lager. That happened for a really long time. And the reason was those lagers sucked.
Yep.
There's a lot more good craft lager now. Thankfully, people are getting into that, but that's still happening with a lot of styles. It happened specifically my favorite style and things that the style of beer I make. There's a lot of fantastic breweries that make really good saison, but a lot of breweries that don't focus on it don't make anything that I would even think of as a saison. They make a Motueka double dry hopped thing they put saison yeast in,
right?
And that is sad, and that like that isn't the proliferation of styles amongst smaller craft breweries. It's just like it's a kind of another IPA that happened to have a different yeast that we call a different thing. So,
yes, it's looking for a new font for the American Psycho business card.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
this font is farmhouse.
Right,
You know,
right.
it's like that's what they're doing, and I think you're taking it even one step beyond what Jim Vorel was saying when he said,
Sure.
"Let's consider the craft beer drinker, the new craft beer drinker, the newer craft beer drinker." There's certain people who are just going to go to their main outlets for wherever they buy beer.
Something
And
like
when-
70% of the packaged craft beer purchased in America is purchased at grocery stores.
Right. And I'm guessing the other 30% is probably primarily in states where you can't buy it from a grocery store.
Sure, yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it's probably more like 90% or higher. And
I'm not sure how that math works, but sure. You mean like in Illinois?
no, I'm saying, you're saying it's 70% in Illinois.
No, I'm saying nationally, but
Right. So I'm saying, like, if it were available in grocery stores everywhere, like it's just like, I'm going to the
sure.
liquor store.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Like some people can't get it in a grocery store,
Right.
But they would if they could, or they do.
most of those states just go next door to it's technically not the grocery store, but it's owned by the grocery store.
Yeah. So anyway, it's as that set starts to not shrink, grow, but the illusion of choice, is kind of it's a new version. It's a different version of the illusion of choice. It's all just IPA. That's what their experience of craft beer is. Because guess what? It's not their experience. That is what craft beer is. That's what craft beer is.
Right.
And we can argue that it isn't, but the reality is that no, we're wrong, not they're wrong.
That's like that line of the ever more irrelevant definition by the Brewers Association.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it doesn't matter that there is more available because where people buy it, it's less available.
Do you think craft beer sets at grocery stores are growing? I think they're probably shrinking.
They're probably shrinking now.
Yeah.
But I think they are bigger than they were 6-7 years ago.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I bet you they're more diverse then.
Yeah, probably not that much more diverse, though, right? There was probably a couple of craft lagers, maybe, or like there was a seasonal that wasn't an IPA.
So we were
Or
talking
there was
about like,
Boston Lager.
let's say 2014, which we're just going to say was like, we were talking
peak
to somebody
beer.
like the last great year.
Yeah.
Right. In craft beer.
We're talking about at a grocery store or at like a big box store, right?
Okay. A big box store that has a set. Ooh, the set would have been small. Mm-hmm. That's what you have to remember back then, too. The set would have been small, but growing rapidly. So in 2014, was Pipeworks in Jewel?
Still not in Jewel,
Okay.
as far as I know.
Okay. I wonder if, like, Lagunitas was definitely in Jewel,
Probably.
without a doubt.
Yeah.
I mean, they sold the
It was
following
like
year
Lagunitas, Goose Island.
for that valued at $1 billion.
Yeah.
They're probably in Jewel.
They're probably in Jewel.
So that means the Pils was in there, the Hairy Eyeball was in there.
No, it doesn't.
A Brown Sugar was in there. So they didn't have a seasonal. You don't think they had any
Maybe.
seasonal? You think they had one?
I think it was probably still. Well, you're probably right. Now I'm
They
taking
had
it
to have
back.
a seasonal.
Especially because like when you think about Chicago and Goose Island was like 312 was probably more prolific back then, and that's very much ebbed
You
out.
could
of
probably,
grocery
well,
stores.
you could have gotten Honkers. You probably could have gotten Nut Brown. You could have gotten Oatmeal Stout.
Yeah, you were right. I've reversed my position.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
Half Acre. You would have had.
Yeah,
They were
but those
very
are IPAs, though.
IPA focused.
Yeah.
But even so, they had like
Rev was an IPA.
wasn't there one called like Ginger Twins? There was
that was
one.
never. That was like a bomber though.
Okay.
Maybe they had, maybe Gossamer, but they canceled. Got was
Over
one of the
ale.
first things to. Those are the two things to go
Yeah.
first.
I'm trying to think
But
of
this
who else. What some of the bigger breweries would have been. Like, I wonder if
Revolution would have had IPA there.
Yep, you would have had. Okay, so
The selection from the bigger breweries would have been more diverse.
Dogfish Head. I was just there. I didn't see Indian Brown anywhere. Indian Brown would have been on that set.
Midas Touch might have been on that
Midas
set.
Touch
things
might
like
have been
that
on.
might have
Indian
been-
Brown was a year round.
Yeah.
Indian Brown Ale is what they called it.
Crazy.
So, I mean, think of even that. Like, that is a interesting take on. It's a hoppy brown ale, whatever. But like, it was known. I think what Jim Vorel was getting at was craft beer in its DNA was diversity of style,
variety,
not diversity of variety of American Pacific Northwest hop combinations.
right? Yeah. I mean, but maybe
Think of all the cool stuff that could be getting made right now.
But maybe necessarily to enter the larger public consciousness, you cannot be that. You can't have that many
Sure.
things.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I'll give you that. It seemed to have worked in the last great year for craft beer.
That was the last great year for craft beer for nerds.
For
like us,
nerds,
though.
yeah.
It's not the last great year for craft beer for the people that count the beans.
Okay.
Like that's
I mean-
that's who makes those decisions, though, right? It's
Sure.
not. It's not the people who sit here and are like, man, I really love a good saison. Like the people that make the decisions of what they're going to make are what sells and what makes them money.
Well, let's also say this. When it was growing,
I'm not defending that either. I hate
no, I
that.
know you're
I
not.
have a whole.
No, I know you're not. I know you're not. But I think we're good at playing devil's advocate
Yeah.
when we're both almost exactly aligned.
Right.
And we make it
this
sound
interesting
like
somehow.
it's like, pardon the interruption, except we both just agree the entire time.
I don't think LeBron has that killer instinct.
Yeah, right. But his killer instinct maybe was better. No. So
No one in the league has killer instinct.
when
anymore.
it was growing, when these places were getting valuations that were through the roof, they were making a greater diversity of style in their lineup. So I'm thinking of the ones that got huge valuations, like Ballast Point.
Yeah.
Obviously, they had a couple. They had their IPA, but they also had like a Wahoo wheat. They had a Kolsch. They had an amazing Helles. They had a porter. They had a stout. They had all these things that were
Right.
like that's just like that was like kind of by the books, paint by number. That's how you
what
had
you
your
did.
stuff out there. And then you went to the smaller breweries, and they were just mimicking the big guys.
a lot
you
of
know.
them, yeah.
Yeah.
But this is a good argument for why we weren't just dumb saps for being sad about breweries selling out. Is that's a good reason why a lot of these places had to.
We're going an hour on this article. Thank you, Jim.
Yeah. That's got to be part of the reason why this hegemony has happened, right? Is that these places no longer care to be the leader culturally of what should be made amongst breweries. They aren't really. Maybe Sierra Nevada might feel a little bit differently because they're still independent, but these other ones, they're there to be profitable companies for the company that owns them. They're not there to be culturally important or culturally ahead of what people making beer think they should make.
Is what you're saying is that they'll let somebody else experiment to see if there is a desire for a different type of style other than an IPA, and then when there is, then they'll make it.
Then they'll make a little bit of it and go back to what.
Yeah. And then if it all becomes brown ale, then guess what? We're making brown ale variety packs.
Yeah, I think that's
So
true.
it's really
every small brewery is the R&D.
So it's the success of craft beer that has led to this.
In our current capitalistic system, yes.
Right. Well, I mean, which is what we're in.
Unfortunately,
So,
the necessary truth of what this is. Yeah,
yeah.
I think, I believe so.
So that means by that thinking, is it fair to say that in 2014, if they had just then switched to all IPAs, that they would have done even better and more quickly assimilated into, the zeitgeist or whatever.
Impossible to know.
Right. I would say no.
Probably
because I would say it was
still a semblance.
It's still cooler. People still, when they go on the draft board here, and we are geeks, hobbyists, or people who are, I want to go to that place that has like interesting, fun beers. Like, maybe they enjoy craft beer, but they're not gonna. Maybe they're gonna buy their beer at Mariano's or Jules or Jewel or whatever. So, they don't want to see all IPAs. They want to see a diversity of different things.
But we are very likely living in an extrapolation of what was actually selling in that moment. And like, this is kind of something I've been thinking about a lot. Is the fact that there is so much more data to be captured and analyzed a hindrance is the reason that this is happening, right?
Or obsessed? Are we moneyballing? Are the whip of the IPA too strong?
I'm sure Sam Calagione could go into a sales meeting with his Chicago distributor and charm them into carrying more India Brown, even if it wasn't the top-selling thing. He'd be like, we really believe in this. But you go into one of those meetings now, and I can't imagine you pointing at their PowerPoint and being like, I don't. What about this smile, though? So like if they're like, 60 Minute is outpacing this by like X amount of dollars, and then you see all these other IPAs are doing the same. Like, that's what makes those decisions now. Like, algorithms are making decisions, and people are really not. Like, if all you want to do is extract money from people, you should just make what they want to buy based on what they are buying. But there's no vision to that.
There's no vision, and there's also no, to use another term that Velicky has used in the past. There's no, zigging when everyone is zagging, or maybe he says zag when everyone zigs, whatever it is. There's none of that.
There's no humanness to it.
It's just follow what everyone else is doing,
right?
And just
try to be there a little bit before the guy that's a little bit bigger that you're competing with is there. Like, maybe that's what they're doing.
Have a more colorful label.
Sure.
So their lizard brain reaches towards your font of IPA. Your business card has a more appealing font to it than the other business card.
So they'll do business with you.
Yeah, so I'll do business with you. Yeah. I mean, we're going back to the same thing, and it's like that's really how you get them. The successful IPA brewery is the one that has, the Dayglow label because it pulls the eye, and then they see IPA. Mm-hmm. So really, if you want to be a craft brewery, you have to have a PhD in
color
theory and psychology of buying habits,
right.
which is why we all got into this. So that's why we love it, right? We love it because when we walk into a shelf of IPA, which one just magically draws us to it because it's got a cute puppy in front of it or whatever the hell. I mean, it's bullshit.
Right. This is part of the reason I am one of those agnostic people is like, I just don't care about it anymore. And I can't do a good job of being someone who owns a brewery of playing that game because I just can't figure out why it matters other than the money part of it, which is clearly very important.
Why what matters?
That's the reason. That's not the reason I wanted to get into making any of this.
Right.
I want to make the things and connect with people. And not in the way that it's just like, if we do this, the colors will pop more for them.
Right. Well, listen, I know it connects with people, all right? Because people are saying, listen, I love everything. I love all craft beer. I love everything from double dry hop beers to session hazy beers to juicy IPAs and everything in between. I love them all. That's the variety I'm looking for. And guess what? IPA is craft beer is going to be annihilated if that's all that we've got to stand on.
I'll have the
difference?
IPA.
I'll have the IPA. I'll have the IPA. To me, I own a fairly respected craft beer outlet in the Midwest.
What is it? What?
It's called the Beer Temple.
Yeah. Sorry.
And to me, and on top of it, I love Sierra Nevada.
Right.
And to me, Powder Day IPA, Summer Break IPA, and Liquid Hoppiness IPA is I'll have the IPA. I don't know the difference between the three, and I don't care to learn the difference between the three.
Right.
Of those three. Because I get what you're doing. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care. I don't care what you're whatever.
It's 100% what it is.
Yeah, and I just don't care. It's just the label has changed. It went from white to like a turquoise. Oh, and now it's yellow.
That must be the summer one.
And like that's it. That's
Right.
all that has changed. And it's like if it's always IPA, like is it going to be better than Headhunter? No. Then why are you then make something different?
Is
like,
the average like grocery store buying beer consumer discerning any difference in there? And then do they want to? Do they actually want to?
Do they want to?
So yeah, I have a friend.
Well, if they don't want to, then it can be more variety.
I have a friend that will keep this relatively anonymous, but works for a place that is trying to understand their consumers, and how they've defined their consumer, at least somewhat, is that our primary consumer is someone that thinks they want something new. Not that they do want something new.
Oh yeah.
But they think they want something new.
Oh yeah.
And it's not that like we should lie to them and tell us, but like they want the feeling of exploring and finding these new
They're
things.
right.
But they don't actually want to, like, instead of getting an IPA, get a Saison or a stout. They want the same, something within the comfort zone of the actual experience, the organoleptic experience they're going to have. But they want to feel like they're getting something new. And I think that's the majority of kind of millennial beer consumers.
So now we're really getting into it. All right, we're not going to get to any other topic now because now we're really getting into it because they're right and they're also wrong, and it's also the craft beer's fault for that whole conundrum being like that. Is how I feel about that whole thing.
They are the beer scene you deserve.
Yes, you get the beer scene you deserve.
Right.
So they do actually want something new, is what I think. They really do want something new. But they can be sated for not having something new, but having it be, it's just an easier transition, an easier new, an easier sell.
Right.
To not have to teach, convince, maybe have someone take a chance, maybe not like it, but maybe love it. Like you're going to the extremes, and it's more of a chance. And you know what?
But
play it safe and give them the hazy IP session this time and the double dry hop this time. And you know what? Give them the Simcoe Citra Mosaic, and then give them the Mosaic Citra Simcoe. And then the next time, give them an all Citra.
Do you think this is a phase? Or do you think this is an inevitable march towards blandness?
I think this is in a march towards oblivion. Because
you don't think it's a phase that will ebb back out and that people will get bored?
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And then
I don't know. But if it doesn't change, it's a march towards oblivion.
So if we're taking the idea earlier, we said that small breweries are the R&D department for larger breweries. Right? Are we accepting that premise that on some level, like what's happening at the smaller brewery level will eventually filter up to what these breweries end up making?
Nowadays, yeah.
So what's happening in small breweries now? There's less IPA and less hegemony of Citra, Simcoe, Mosaic, and is that right?
Yes, yes. I feel better about the last 12 months than I felt about the last several years.
So how likely do you think it is that will end up filtering up? And not that they'll go back to making Keller Weiss or something like that, but they'll introduce new, or now we make a Pilsner.
Double dry hop Weiss.
It's like
hazy Weiss.
Right. That they're
straight from the Keller.
Sure.
Right.
But that it will be, not repackaged same beers, but them being like, really, we have to do this over again, kind of. Right? It's like when I don't know. I feel like that is more likely than it just being a continual march towards, instead of making 4 seasonal IPAs, we just make the same IPA and we change the label every 4 months.
Which is probably what they're doing now.
No,
they're not.
I think they do tweak
They're
a
not.
little
They're
bit.
not. They're not.
But I think there's an equal.
But there's
chance.
other breweries that are almost doing that.
Which there are craft breweries that are doing that.
That's
right?
what I'm saying.
Like
Almost
put a
doing
different version of broccoli on it.
Right.
You know, so there is, if the past is any sign of the future, that there's a possibility that this is a phase at the largest levels of craft beer, and that it could end up ebbing
They're
back,
lagging. They're
ebbing
lagging
back
behind.
into more
Yeah.
diversity.
I certainly hope
they
so.
do. They do, right? At least they have in the last 8 years.
Mm-hmm.
So either they still do that, or it is just inevitably, or it's just going to be a continual march towards more of this.
Right.
But it can't be more of this. Look at that article. It's 100% IPA.
It's all this.
Yeah.
But they're also now they're owned by and moving in circles of breweries who are not willing to make those kind of changes. So like if you're owned by a big global national a multinational brewery, you know, they may not be as willing to kind of shift back in a way.
I think we might be at a point where they never lead again, right? But they might diversify their styles. If we had talked 8 years ago, maybe more, I don't even know, but when we said that Sierra Nevada was going to have a line of hazy beers.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Would you have ever thought that was like, you're like, no, you would have been like, no way, that's like still a small thing happening, like blah, blah, blah. But it happened. And so it's possible they end up with a line of like more craft tasting Pilsners or American craft tasting Pilsners or, I mean, I guess kettles. What else is even popular? I don't even. Saison.
Yeah, exactly.
Bottle conditioned 500 milliliter bottles of Saison.
Yeah, exactly. It's
It will happen slowly. I don't think they're going to have 14 different craft Pilsners, but they're
right.
like. But maybe cold IPA is another version of why this might not happen, because we're just naming all those things IPA now. Whereas maybe 8-10 years ago that was like a white ale. And now it's a white IPA, just because IPA equal craft beer.
Which
does any of this matter?
I mean, it does. I do think it does if you care about craft beer. I do think that I don't know. I think are these big breweries now like too far gone that they're going to be able to? So are they going to like kind of kick the ladder out from underneath them? Are they going to control the set so the people
they've been controlling the set, man. Like
right. But the thing is, it's because all right, guys,
there's
go
never
back
been
and
there's
listen.
never been a time craft beer controlled the set.
Listen to like the first couple episodes of this show and how I was talking about how all big beer wants to do is control the set and give illusion of diversity, and how to take up the space on the shelf but give you all the same stuff. I might have even said stylistically at the time I was thinking, diversity, but I said they want to narrow that set as much as possible. And I think I even said they might want that set to physically shrink. They want it smaller so it's easier for them to control. They don't like 1,000 SKUs. They like 30 SKUs. And, they can snuff out all this other stuff. Just don't let it get on the set. 70% of people, 90% of people are buying it this way. Don't let it get on. We learned from our mistakes when we let craft beer and all their crazy choices get out there, and we're just not going to do it again. I can absolutely see that happening. Now, hazy, that was a thing. I mean, that just came in, but that's a sub-style of beer. It's of a style. It's a sub-style of IPA. Mm-hmm. And it just, took over everything. Now, getting back to what I was saying before, this is craft. We got the market we deserve.
Yeah.
Because everyone jumped on IPA and hazy, and they became, as soon as stuff dipped, everybody abandoned every other style but the IPA. They all started making more IPA. They all started making hazy IPAs. They all abandoned everything. And I know I'm using absolutes, and that's not the actual case. It's not the case, but you know what I'm saying. Like, it's just... Yeah. And this is what we get as a result. All right. Now, like, yeah, okay. Well, everyone's doing it. These guys are a little bit behind Lagunitas and New Belgium and Sierra Nevada and all those guys. And it's just all IPA now. All IPAs that I used to drink every Sierra Nevada seasonal.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was worth drinking if they thought it was worth putting out. And I do not think that way anymore.
That's culturally not how it works anymore. Like, it's a function of the scale of those places often that, like, they're not making beer for you and me anymore. Mm-mm. Like, we might like some of the beers they make, but that's not who they're focusing on making beer for.
So you're saying that IPA is just a more approachable beer style than other quote-unquote craft beer styles?
I can guarantee you it spurs sales more, or else they wouldn't be doing this. I don't know if it's approachable, but it causes more beer to be sold, at least is what they're probably thinking, or data they have is telling them.
I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does in reality, but why? I mean, I do think there's
IPA
like a...
equal craft beer.
Right.
Like, it's like that. That's the Randy, not Randy Mosher, the Ray Daniels hell. That's why he thought that. And craft beer is probably at that scale evolved out of being some sort of creative expression of a individual or a company. It's a good to be consumed to be bought at the grocery store and put in your fridge for whenever you're going to drink it or have people over.
Right. When you want to have a Mick Ultra or a hoppy Mick Ultra, a.k.a. an IPA.
Yeah. Well, those things give me headaches because of the hops.
I mean, talk about it. I mean, that is probably... Right. It's so true. I hear that a lot.
I mean, that's not an atypical...
Oh, absolutely.
There's probably more people who believe that than know what an ester is.
Oh, multiples more.
Yeah.
Exponentially more.
Right.
Yeah, no, it took me a while to pick up on that. But that was brilliant. So, yeah, I mean, I think Ray Daniels is right. You go, and I'm thinking not at a bar, but I've definitely... I don't know how many times I've gone to a bar, except for maybe at like a hotel bar or something like that, where you hear someone say, I'll have the IPA. Mm. But I've definitely gone to people's house, like if you go over for a, whatever, cookout or Super Bowl party or whatever, and you're like, we go in there, I've got Mick Ultra, I've got IPA, I've got, like, that is what they're buying.
Right.
Buy an IPA. Buy a craft beer, a.k.a. an IPA.
Which is... ironically, never would I pick in a situation like that.
Right. I mean, in that situation, I'd probably drink. Oh boy, Mick. If it was literally Mick Ultra, I'd probably go IPA.
I'd probably go IPA in that one. Yeah.
But almost any other lager, I'd probably go lager.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'd go PBR over that, like
easily,
like 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
Depending on what the IPA is.
Yeah.
But I mean, if it's Fatheads and it's fresh, then I'm like, I'll be in the corner.
You need to move to like western or eastern
Middleburg
Ohio.
Heights. No,
yeah.
Middleburg Heights, Ohio. What if you found
that.
out I have news? I'm moving to Middleburg Heights, Ohio.
Yeah.
And adjacent to a industrial park.
Yeah. Moving into the industrial park.
Yeah.
You bought the empty space next to it.
Yes. Yeah, man. I think we are there. I think that craft beer has stratified, and that the people who say, I'll have an IPA, think of craft beer as that, but know that there is this other part of craft beer, and they're probably not interested in it. Just like people who drink Johnny Walker know that there's like single malts and all this, like these even people who drink like Glenfiddich, maybe they
Yeah.
know that there's like, there's that whole world of stuff, but
And I do have
whatever.
to say, I'd rather have the hegemony of a large brewery style be IPA than something like fruited kettle sour or smoothie IPA or things that we thought were going to be like super important, because those things don't taste anything like most of the beer that people are making, that small breweries are making.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And so the people out
It's a better gateway.
there was a moment where I was very afraid that when like those were the huge styles, that people were just gonna not like beer anymore. Like that was gonna be their entry point, and they'd be like, I don't like craft beer, and then never drink. At least an IPA, they're like, okay, this tastes like something that
This is beer.
Maybe a mutant version, but it's beer. So I guess if we're taking, if there's one nice thing to take away from it, at least it's IPA and not at least not pastry stout.
Yeah.
Like pastry stout would be worse.
And again, like just to credit Jim for, I think, just the
Imagine if
the
I was like,
fully realized like complexity of how I think about this is he does say like, just because there is more out there doesn't mean that we can't lament the fact that people like Lagunitas and Sierra Nevada have just trimmed down these seasonal lineups that have existed for the entirety of their existence.
yeah.
And for those of you out there saying Lagunitas Sucks didn't come out until 2016, or Ruthless Rye was only out for 4 years. They've been around since 1982 or 4 or whatever. I'm talking about the diversity of styles that came out.
Right.
That has atrophied, and now it looks like it is gone with very, very few exceptions.
And I think like that old timey me being like, well, there's probably more of this being made than ever before. The fact that there is almost no entry, like easily accessible entry points, is the reason I don't really find that a heartening argument anymore.
Yeah, I mean, in the Midwest, if Bell's goes the way of Sierra Nevada, which they probably will now that they're owned by a big company, I mean, Amber and Brown are like gone.
Yeah.
They're just gone as styles.
Yeah. And I think-
Domestic, the American Brown, they were like the last holdout.
Yeah, I think the heart of this show might be the ability to hold the cognitive and emotional dissonance of being like, we understand why breweries sell out, and yet we can still be sad that it happened, right? We can we can talk about like, yeah, we get that your employees get better health insurance there, but we can also be upset about both the philosophical and the actual effects on the beer.
Because we're seeing it happen.
Right.
Nothing's going to change. Remember every buyout, how they said that?
Right.
Well, it's changed. Although Sierra Nevada has not sold out, and they've also changed.
Right.
But the whole thing has changed.
Yeah. You can both be happy that Sierra Nevada exists and sad that for what it is now.
Yes. Well, I'm still very happy for what it is now overall.
Really, we spent an hour and 32 minutes talking about why it's
That's true. It is very sad. I mean, maybe what I need to realize.
Right, hour 28.
What I need to realize is how much of those things are gone now. But I mean, I will say, Celebration, Bigfoot, Pale Ale, Torpedo, alone are still reasons to celebrate that brewery.
Absolutely.
And they will never get rid of Pale Ale.
Now that you said it,
Yeah,
2 weeks from now.
exactly. Imagine if they did.
And yeah, it's going to be your fault.
It would be my fault. They'd pillory me. Well, boy, I mean, hey, Jim Vorel, we got to reach out to him. Hey, has he even been on the show before? He might have been on the show. Who
We've
knows?
definitely read the articles from
Yeah.
him. Or not like this, but we've talked about articles in roundtables.
Excellent article.
Absolutely.
I'm glad we read the whole thing, Chapo style. And hey, we filled up a show with it. So how can we take
You're welcome.
we're episode 256. How can we take a topic that we've talked about in 252 episodes and then just give it another hour and a half?
Oh, we nailed it.
Nailed it. Easy.
Yeah, we do what we do, and we do it well.
Exactly. We bitch about a few things.
And then I try to spend
over
about
and over
4
again.
of the minutes, be like, no, it's going to be okay. And then we're like, all right, back to the bitching.
Yeah, exactly. I want to remind everyone again about Barrel Aged Stout and Selling Out.
Uh-huh.
We're going to have Josh Noel on for part of our Beer Temple book club.
At some point in the
We're going to, yeah. We'll get a date. We'll have a date by the next show. Mm-hmm. And pick up the book if you haven't. We can get links to the book. Maybe I'll put a link to the book in the show notes. I'll talk to Josh about that. Read it. Excellent book. Very good read.
Best narrative beer book I've ever read.
Mm-hmm. It's a very, very good one. It's a very, very good one. Yeah. Is there anything else you want to say, Mr. Shillau?
No,
nothing else.
I don't think so.
Okay.
I always think I should have said something, but I never do.
After the outro music comes on, I don't think I've ever thought that once. It's just like, okay.
Well, it's always like after I have like an event or something, I'm like, I should have, like, I do a weekly podcast. I didn't talk about that once.
Right. Yeah, that's true. I probably should talk about that. Yeah, I mean, I'll probably not talk about like Swansea Day or anything. We do have a bunch of cool events coming up.
If you will bury it at the end of the show.
Like now.
Oh, we have an
dead
event
time.
here coming up.
You do?
Yeah.
That's right.
What day is that? August something.
It's August something.
Raising money for Sacred Agave.
Mm-hmm. You're doing that.
Well, on the next show, we'll have a date and tell you what that is, but it might have been after. It might come out after the event, actually.
We've got a Phantom event coming up with authorized glassware, believe it or not.
Whew.
Oof.
What's the, like, is it you get like 6 bottles and one of them will be good?
Yes.
Nice.
That's what it is.
That's
it's like a lottery.
The true experience.
Mm-hmm.
You get to pay for all the bottles.
We've tasted all of them. We know what the good ones and the bad ones are, but we give you a scratcher ticket.
You haven't tasted all the bottles, though.
No, every bottle we open up.
Put the cork back in.
Yep. And then you have a scratcher, and if you win, we give you a good bottle. And if you lose, we just give you a crappy bottle.
Perfect.
Yeah.
True lottery style.
All right, guys. We will talk to you, talk at you next week. Thank you so much, as always. So long.
Remember, this is what we wanted. Remember, this is what we said. To never be heard or seen from again. Remember, this is what we wanted.